Welcome to the Courage to Live podcast. My name is Josh Bitsko, and I'm a retired police captain with 24 years of experience. Currently, I travel the country and I teach people about leadership, resilience, and courage. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how not to make policing or really any high pressure job your identity. And I can tell you, I remember when I was a new police officer, I really identified with the idea of being a cop. I was 21 years old, fresh out of the academy, and it was cool. It was cool to be a cop. So I found myself at times early in my career getting lost in that identity and kind of losing the parts of myself that weren't police related. All of my friends were other cops. And when we would get together, we would just talk about work and talk about stories. And I kind of realized as I grew and as I aged in the career that I definitely needed not only a different group of friends, like I'm still friends with cops that I worked with early in my career, but having experiences outside of police work is good for your mental health and building resilience, but also just needing something that was my identity that was beyond what I did for a living. And like I said, it's hard because a lot of times we spend a lot of time at work, a lot of time around our peers and people that are living that shared experience. And the other part of it is takes so much of your life that, when I was walking around off duty, I had a badge on me. I had my gun with me. I still carry a gun when I'm off duty, or now that I'm retired, I guess not off duty, but when I'm out and about, because I'm allowed to, as a retired officer, carry in all 50 states. And those are big reasons why it's hard not to get lost in, your identity being your career. And like I said, a lot of that comes from the high stress nature and that expectation that you have to be that 24/7 officer, or especially as a leader. But what it can cause is it can cause burnout because you don't have balance in your life. And you can, again, struggle with your self-worth later in your career when you do find retirement. And, there's a staggering statistic that similarly situated public employee outside of policing lives on average a decade longer than a police officer when they retire. And that's really scary for those of us in the profession. And the other part of that is, we don't really know why. It could be lack of sleep because of shift work. It could be poor diet, the stress of the job. But I do think there's part of, the toll it takes on your mind when you are no longer this thing that you identified with for decades. And like I said, I'll tell you, there's times now I struggle not being a cop. And I really did work at having things outside of policing that I, identified with, beyond being a father and a husband. But I had a whole community in jujitsu and with that group. And I'm still friends with guys I went to high school with that are outside of the profession. So finding hobbies, finding things that you identify with outside of work is really important. It can build resilience by giving you other sources of meaning and purpose. It can also help you maintain perspective during tough times in your career, which we've always had. I know I had several times throughout my career that things weren't going well. And, because I had these other parts of my life at that point, it wasn't as difficult to get through because it wasn't my whole identity at that point. So one of the things that I recommend is just doing a self check-in, just to see, what do you love about your life and your situation that doesn't involve work? And if you sit down and do that check-in and you're struggling to find something, then that's time to really take account of what you're doing and maybe find something beyond your career to identify. Another interesting part when I wasn't completely identifying with my career is I performed better at work. I wasn't as burnt out. I wasn't as, I didn't have that need to be perfect at work. And because I wasn't putting so much pressure on myself, I tended to perform better. So just remember, you are more than your career, whether that career involves a badge and a gun or not. Because I know people in other professions, whether it's executives or doctors or firefighters, everybody finds identity and self worth in their career. So, really taking time to be more than that. And that's my message for today. I appreciate you guys listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend or subscribe. And if you like what I talk about, there's definitely more in my book, The Courage to Live, which is available on Amazon. And you just have to search The Courage to Live on Amazon by Josh Bitsko, and it will come up. Thank you.